All right. Well, here we are on episode 8 of the Mike Reynolds podcast. I am your host, Steven Aruda, aka Mike Reynolds, and to my right, your left, is Christian Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. I'm glad to be on the Ocho. It's about to get weird. Maybe not.
I'm glad that no one's DJing a quinceañera on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, there's the lack of Pitbull is making us a much more chill podcast this time.
And maybe that's why I was having a hard time getting started. It was just like there wasn't any usher in the background.
Yeah, there's no.
Let's get pumped. Quick little recap. First of all, thank you for all of you keep listening and letting us know how much you're enjoying doing these. I guess we'll keep doing them. We might as well do another one and see what happens.
Yeah.
But last episode, we enjoyed a conversation with my very first employee, Matt Lewis. Hope you enjoyed that, man. I had a great time. He did better than I think he thought he was going to do.
Yeah, he did awesome.
And I made it as if that was his actual, we made it like it was his actual job interview. It was pretty funny. But no, he did great. So we were talking about him in the year 2018. So this year, he was kind of giving his perspective on his first year and then how it's changed, in the past few years he's been here. So, this episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of those events through 2018. And funny enough, kind of that segues really well into the mics we're on, because in 2018 I actually met these at NAMM. I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. I met these really cool guys. I said hey in like 2017, but this year I was a little bit more comfortable and getting into a deeper conversation with a microphone company called Soyuz. So Soyuz microphones, that's what we're on today. I'm on it's called the Bomblet, but its model number is the 023 or the 23. Chris is on, what are you on, buddy?
I'm on the 1973. Beautiful year.
Excellent. No, that was like, you're way too young.
Yeah.
You're way too young. I was like, that's older than me. So yeah, if they come out with a 1978, I'll rock that sucker. So getting to know them, they're kind of like Soyuz is kind of like a Mojave company. Like they're small. There's like there's always a guy who knows the technical side. Typically, there's a guy who knows the business side. There's maybe somebody who knows music. There's David and I haven't met Pavel. Pavel's in Russia where these are made. But then Kenny does all the sales in the U.S. It's great, and I went to their apartment. There's an apartment off of Wilshire in Koreatown, and it was a closet and it's just full of mics, and it was great. That's actually where I picked up that mic right there.
Oh, really?
I picked that up in Los Angeles from
someone that you went into the closet.
Well, it was kind of crazy. I was looking for the carpet from Psycho, or excuse me, The Shining.
Oh yes, The Shining.
My bad. I was looking for that carpet just in case I was going to disappear, but. Anyway, the uniqueness of the mics when I first heard them, I wish we could have their whole lineup. They more or less have about nine different products. Most of them are microphones. They have a couple of inline pre's. You got to hear their lake side. It's kind of like their first kind of outboard gear classified, their preamp.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty sick. Maybe we'll carry that in the future.
And the cool thing about their stuff is it's got a certain kind of retro kind of aesthetic.
Yes.
It's very much especially made for looking cool in the studio, looking cool on the stage, sounding good, having that quality, but it's very niche. And I know a lot of people like the 1973s specifically because of guitarists be using them on YouTube. Yeah, no doubt. All that kind of stuff.
The first I really kind of heard of them, other than meeting them, was I felt like I was during my whole research, and I saw what recordings were done with what mics, and Coldplay used the 17s, which the 17s, that's their That's their premier large diaphragm condenser. So you have the 17 FET, and then you also have the 17 tube. Is that an airplane taking off, or is that the air conditioner?
I think the AC just kicked on.
So these mics, this capsule is in both. By the way, the 23 and the 73. That's what I'm going to refer to that one as. They both have identical capsules, and you're like, well, isn't that the same mic? Well, no, because microphones, you have the capsule itself, but then you also have the circuitry, the signal flows through, and that's where the difference is. So they're both FET condensers. They both have the same pickup pattern, which is cardioid. So again, condensers for the first people showing up to the podcast, they need phantom power from either a console, a mixer, mix pre, whatever interface, whatever. Cardioid pattern, frequency response, I think it's like 30 to 20. So 30 is the hertz is the low, 20K is the high. But the sensitivity that's all identical. They both use FETs, which it's not an embryo transfer.
We learned that 2 episodes ago.
Anyway, so they both use FETs, but they don't tell you too much, like on their website, what they've taken out of that mic or not put in that mic, but they definitely sound different. What are your takes on that mic when you?
It's a little darker than yours for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, and you're 12 inches away from that sucker.
Yeah.
So it's acting a lot like a studio condenser.
Definitely.
I think what we end up experiencing or seeing people, they'll get a U87 or a nice large diaphragm, and they'll be all up on this junk, and like the capsule's distorting. They don't even realize the capsule's distorting. So they might not they don't like how it sounds. Well, it's like, well, back the heck away from that thing. It's a little guide when I took my first recording class, like back in like 2000, was to do like the hang 10 symbol and do this, and that kind of gave you an idea. Not to mention, you get up on these things too close, your plosives just blow the crap out of it.
For sure, yeah.
Gosh, man, that mic sounds so great. So the first mics that we owned were the 2013s. So you could throw 2013s, the 013s.
Yeah.
We could throw a picture of those up. Those things look like, I should have had some laying on my desk. But I think all of ours are out for repair right now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get used quite a bit, but they look like gigantic 50 caliber shells.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But those are some of the beefiest FET small diaphragm condensers. And then they have some other, I already forgot the model numbers of them, but if you get a chance, go to Soyuz Microphones, go to their website. Super, by the way, incredible. Was that a DJ just now yelling out, or was that something else?
Yeah, that was
okay.
Something over there.
All good. So if you go to their website and you find out, first of all, you'll find out their site just is beautiful and colorful, and I think that's kind of the draw to them. Like you said, the design, the vibe. When you go see it, when we saw them at NAMM this past year, their whole booth had a killer vibe.
Well, they had like an arcade machine, and they were like, you had to like try to beat the highest score, and you could win a prize, kind of thing.
Yeah, and homeboy's over there with his little like pour over a coffee setup. David's.
Yeah.
They've always been, and they've been really cool with just open to ideas. I've shared some marketing ideas and thoughts with them before. And that's what I love about small mic manufacturers, and try to support them as best we can. We used to own a 17, and that unfortunately never returned. So we stopped carrying those. It was these microphones can be quite an investment. I think that microphone's right around $700 or $800. I think mine's like $1,400 to $1,500. How did I do on the pricing Jeopardy? You just let me know. But yeah, if you're doing I think a recording, a voiceover, something like that, one of these two mics, it would be great if you maybe even A/B'd these. You can easily find them on our site to try them out.
So these are 800.
Okay, those are 8.
Yeah.
And I think this one's like 15 or something like that.
Yeah, right now you can't even buy it on their website.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. They've had a couple other models, but they changed like the outside, the aesthetic of it, the paint, then the finish. But yeah, if you start going to like the 17 tubes, you're talking about a $4,000 mic. But there's been engineers that have compared this mic and the 13s to like a 251 and a U47. I'm like, that's a pretty bold statement, because you're talking about thousands of dollars in difference in pricing. But what happens is a lot of people don't realize that they need to record their source at different distances too, because of course your voice can sound really nasty up front. Not to mention something with large diaphragm condensers to just keep in mind in general, like when you're spit and moisture, eventually that degrades, is that the word? Eventually messes up the capsule.
And humidity damage.
Yes, and it can actually cause it to short. And so you don't want that at all. But yeah, really cool. I like the stainless spun design. So Soyuz, all this is made in Tula, Russia. The fun fact was they're all made on Kalashnikov lathes. So if you're gun enthusiast, the good old AK-47s, right? Yes. So that's kind of a little thing on Soyuz. I hope you're enjoying us doing these. We love switching these out as much as possible. So like I mentioned, we met them at NAMM. So in 2018, we're back out in Anaheim, and we're back out at Saddleback again. And what a great event that was. I think this was the last time we did an event at Saddleback's main campus. So that was great. NAMM was a day or two later. And aside from meeting Soyuz, we furthered our relationship with Earthworks and DPA and Mojave. I actually finally got to meet David Royer for the first time, and that was a great conversation. I think he lost me after about 2 minutes, because he's a pretty intelligent human being. But also very sweet, and the whole Mojave family is really kind. But then the next thing was like, what else would people be interested in? So as I'm walking around, I discovered Telefunken. I say discovered. I've always knew about Telefunken.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if that was something we should end up having later. And funny enough, just like with most of the brands we have in here, we got into them because of the capsules. And, Lee was helping us. He was pushing the whole bucket of capsules thing, right?
Yeah.
He's first doing that out of Bayside. So now I'm looking for other capsule options. So naturally, Telefunken was a relationship I wanted. It just started out really, really small, but now it's done much better. We mainly handle the M80s and M82s and the drum mics and things like that.
Yeah.
Then another one was Heil, and Bob Heil specifically has quite the history and contributing to audio and sound in general through speakers, and then later on through dynamic mics. But Andrew was using I can't remember, PR28s and PR30s. PR30 was like there was like a little short guy.
I think it was a 48.
Okay, it's been a minute. Because like for me, the Heil was always kind of like in the podcast mic category, but then of course we were using the combination for a while. That was the combination on our drum kits at all the campuses, right? Top and bottom. And so, there was a season, and then Andrew switched it to whatever he ended up switching it to, but the campuses kind of stayed the same for quite a bit of time. But mainly we were trying to introduce them to MXU and the whole church production community, and just kind of see if that stuck. So they turned me. So the Heil people ended up turning me on to a couple events that would happen later on the year. So all about this is kind of like my small business hat for a second. When you're thinking about your market and how to reach your market, and especially if you have something that can go beyond the limits of your city. So obviously, Mike Reynolds was poised to be a nationwide thing.
Yeah.
Well, I could drive around Tulsa, visit churches, or try to find groups of different types of sound mixers or whatever, but Tulsa's not a big city. It's not Houston.
No.
Yeah, probably could pull that off in a city like Houston, Los Angeles, Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I had to find, you have to find and explore more or less trade shows, and so one of them was Podfest down in Orlando. So I just signed up for it, paid for it, went myself, had no idea what to expect, and it was like this whole nother world. I think I ran into this guy, the guy who wrote that song, is it She Bangs or whatever it's called, the dude that was on he was on American Idol, and he couldn't really sing, but we're gonna put a picture of him up.
Oh my gosh!
I'm gonna find that picture of me with him. I can't even remember his dang name, but he couldn't really sing. But that's funny. He was selling out shows because he couldn't sing. It was more so entertainment. But you discover like all the different podcasts people do. Podcasts for people to help them sleep. Podcasts. Obviously, there's a lot of real estate podcasts and things like that. And so it's funny. This wasn't even on my radar. I was trying to think of what would I do, and it just didn't make any sense. But what was really cool is that within within about an hour of the event actually start, William Hung. It just dawned on me.
Oh, that guy.
Thank you, Daryl. Our producer Daryl here just threw me a Hail Mary. Thank you for the dime. But I derailed. What was I talking about? You clearly weren't listening.
Well, I was thrown off by the Willie Hung thing too. You were talking about how it wasn't on your radar.
Apologize. So you end up meeting guys who like know everything about podcasting. Yes, and podcasting was not on my radar. It's something that I was there for. It's because I knew Andrew wanted to do it for MXU, and they were just kind of getting started on doing that stuff. And I wanted to learn more, and just pass that on to him because I wasn't really there for myself. I was trying to discover another, I guess what you would call a vertical market.
Yeah.
And so I sat at tables, talked to people. One of the guys who was very well known in that podcasting circle, Dave Jackson, actually pulled me aside and did an interview. So I did my first podcast interview, and I need to go back and listen to it. But I was all about mic rentals, and one of the things is maybe they have podcast guests and they don't have a mic, or they need to send somebody a mic. Some people don't have a mic sitting at home, and so
we actually have that now. We have people that rent from us because they have people that they interview across the country, and they can just rent from us, and the package arrives where it needs to go. They're able to record their podcast. It's really simple because it's an awesome USB mic, the AT2005 USB.
Bingo.
And and then all the liabilities out of it because it's a mic rental kind of thing, and they ship it back, and we do that all year long for these people.
And that's where I was hearing a lot about the 2001, which is the plastic version.
Yeah.
And then we could only, through our dealer, we could only get access to the 05. I'm so glad we did, because that was way better, just quality build. And I mean, geez, we sold hundreds,
Oh, yeah.
I have my own canned laughter in the background.
Yeah.
Apparently. So, I wasn't sure if that was something we need to go to every year. I'm also trying to figure out whether or not it makes sense for me to, good Lord, for me to actually have a booth there. Because, when you do trade shows and whatnot, it can be quite the expense. It's $5,000, $10,000. And then if it's oh dear Lord, if it's a convention center and you have to pay for union to do drapes and electrical, it's I keep hearing prices $500 to get electrical drop, and then $250 for access to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And it's just I just didn't want to do. You don't know whether or not it's worth dealing with all that stuff. In this case, in the long run, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
But it was super beneficial because I met a dude there, and I was bored, so I helped set up his podcast mic shootout booth.
Nice.
Yeah, and I helped him set it up. I was like, dude, I'm here. Let me help you. And he was again, good experience. Then another vertical market, if you will, was okay, what about colleges, college theaters. What do they have going on? And so the premier event for them is USITT. So that's the Institution for Theater Technology.
Yeah.
I got a picture of I walked into this room for the first time, and there was way more people than I expected to be there. One thing I didn't realize, at first I remember missing my flight that morning, because I couldn't afford TSA or any of that stuff yet. But we ended up, it was just finally getting there. The timing had to be right, because keep in mind I'm by myself, so my wife's going to have to help fulfill rentals.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I'm there, and thankfully this is awesome, because thankfully I saw a familiar face, and it was Ryan and the guys from Digico, and I was like, that meant the world. And I didn't know Ryan a ton. It's just I knew him from MXU, so it was nice to just have a friendly face, a familiar face.
Yes.
But just walking around, it's amazing. It just opened my eyes to how this whole thing is a lot of, yes, there's this Yamaha, Digico, they had massive PA shootouts outside, but then there's also Disney's there, and all the cruise lines are recruiting all of these technical students.
Oh yeah.
So you have people in stagecraft, people that build sets, people that do makeup, all those specialties. And I had no idea how much USC puts in, obviously being Southern California, USC and UCLA put tons into their theater stuff.
Yes.
But most of the D1 schools have pretty prominent Broadway level type of production. So and again, it's whether or not it was great to be there and see it and absorb it, and whether or not it was something we needed to be at, that was a different story. It just weighing that out, and it's something I haven't been back to since. I almost went this past year. It just didn't work out. It's right on top of spring break, so it can be tough when with kids and things like that.
But, oh yeah,
and that was not the. This is hilarious, because that was not the best. They picked Fort Lauderdale during spring break to do their USITT. And I remember I thought I was going to go on a nice quiet walk on the beach. And I was like, I don't belong here. I didn't even park. I'm so overdressed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just down there, playing, there's probably a rave going on the beach, and Jello shots just handed out.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
But back to events that we knew where we belonged, and that's MXU back in Chicago, and Philo. And this time, it's the first time it's ever been done at Willow Creek. And the cool thing about this year was that the podcast just was getting a lot of momentum for them. We were able to supply the setup for them, kind of co-sponsor the room.
Yeah.
But they did a live one with Robert Scoville, and I don't know what episode that was. It had to have been within the first 15 that they did that, but it was one of the best ones, because you had the audience laughing. We mic'd the room and all that stuff. So it was Jesse traveled up with them, and made that sound really good. But by then, after being partnering with MXU for 2 years, we're finally seeing a result from the relationship and the investment of being with them. It's I had to start. That was right at the beginning of the summer. So I pulled in Jordan as an intern, and of course I was telling Matt, having Matt come back a few days during the week, because stuff was picking up, and I couldn't keep asking my wife to, hey, drop this RE20 in the mail here and there. That puts a strain on your relationship. So I felt like we were in a really good sweet spot, and set up really well for the future. So the discovery throughout the summer kept going on. We ended up talking about I ended up finding out about the podcast movement. So the first one was Podfest. I found out about the podcast movement, and that is way, way, way bigger. So it was in a bigger hotel. It was in Philadelphia. What's funny enough, I met up with Alan from DPA. And
course.
he showed me the 6066 for the first time. This was my favorite headset, and I put that thing on. And I was like, you got something good here. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
But that was I had a few months to get a feel for what like the podcast rental situation, or if you will, whether it would work out. And it was, it didn't work out as much as I think I wanted to, because some of the mics, the Heils and things like that, they're not terribly expensive. We're not talking about these, right? So some of them they just more or less outright buy them, or if they try them from us and they buy them from somewhere else. I can't control that. But Podfest was really engaging. I think that's the first time I talked with somebody from Sennheiser Neumann, more so from the Neumann side. And Heil was there again, and of course I think we built this special like Heil like shootout mic kit. We're just trying to see if something sticks, whether or not we belong here, or if this is something that would like a certain mic package that we put out on rentals, if that's going to make sense for people. And sometimes it doesn't. So that was 3 events I haven't been back since 2018.
Yeah.
But it was worth just at least scouting them, at least knowing that whether you just got to know what spaces you belong in. And hey, it doesn't mean that that's like dead. You never know when you get kind of pulled back into that, or even get like invited to be back there. So that's fine, But hey, I'm really thankful for all the people that I met, the roundtable discussions that I've had with some of them. Of course, a lot of them are like people would actually rent microphones. It's like, yeah, you wouldn't believe it, but it does happen. So a different kind of opportunity. So as you're, looking for all these other places to have a presence at, then other opportunities started coming to us. And, every business has a chance to support something local. And I don't know. I guess they just caught me in a. I don't know if it was a good mood, but because that mood has not stopped. But our friend Daniel Chrisman reached out to us, and he's in a band called the Tree Giants. Yeah. And I was kind of familiar with their music. Are you?
Yeah, I'm a little familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They did some stuff with Social Club Misfits. So they did a joint recording with them. They did some features with them and another Toby Mac artist or whatever. But again, they're just normal guys. One guy used to sing at Life Church, and of course Daniel played at Church on the Move. And they're like, hey, we were asked to do a live performance in Oklahoma City. I was like, I didn't think you guys performed live. They're like, we don't. I was like, okay, what do you need? And they're like, well, we could use in-ears, so we could use a drum mic kit and all this other stuff. And they're like, oh, and we don't have any money. And I was like, well, that I expected that. So I was waiting I was like, you know what, this would be really cool to support someone local. Take Matt and Jordan, my only 2 people working here. Yeah. You would have gone, because that's the cool side of Oklahoma City. Oh, nice. At the Tower Theater, I think is what.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I've been by there.
That's the cool part of town.
Yeah, not the ugly part of town. The west side.
I get it all mixed up. It's Oklahoma City's like it's the size of Los Angeles, but with not as many people. It's area wise, it's so big. But that night I threw up some like Mojave 201s just to record the room and whatever. And I think we gave them some PSM 900s. Some bands starting out would kill for that stuff. Oh, right? For sure. So we treated them like first class, as if, whether they went on to do bigger and better things since then, that actually didn't matter. It was just like, we want to support you for this night. If another one comes, great. And if another one comes, that's fantastic. I think I had, so they had like all Earthworks on the drum kit.
Nice. That's a really great first drum mic package.
It is. I made a discovery about the SR20 LS, the kick mic that they were putting out with the DK7, was that thing was super particular about where the heck you pointed it, because somebody tripped over the cable and and it went like off center from. It was pointed right at the beater, right?
Yeah.
And this front of house guy was like, "That's an interesting sounding kick mic you got there." And I was like, "Wait a minute!" It was like pointed straight up into the drum. But yeah, they had de facto. So they had 4018s for handhelds, and anyway, it was a really good show, really good experience. I had another one that came out of the blue one day. So I told you about the mic capsules. Where that's got like a billion of them on the shelf over there.
There's like 3 shelves.
I know it's so many, but like at the beginning, I was just like, anytime somebody wanted to talk about a capsule, so I'm talking to this guy. His name's Victor, and I'm assuming he's probably with a church or something. But I noticed the address was going to a casino, so I'm like, well, what's at a casino? And I kind of looked, and I was like, trying to put the pieces together. I'm always curious about where something's going, what it's doing. Okay, if it's going to this church, what event is it for? If it's going to casino, who is it for, kind of thing. So this guy had a very particular ear for his artist, if you will, and that artist turned out to be the comedian Gabriel Iglesias, aka Fluffy. It's funny, I kind of knew what he was, and then I listened to some of his stuff and ended up it being pretty funny. But what's amazing is this guy took Victor, he's still with him, took such care and paid such close attention to the one most important source he's got. And so this could speak to, like, your pastor on a Sunday. If your pastor is struggling, if you're struggling with how the pastor's mic sounds or how it fits or if he's comfortable or not, it might be time to try something different. Again, especially if there's a problem. And that's what we do really well. You just shoot out before you loot out. And so with Victor, he was needing he was narrowing down to basically 3 capsules that he could change depending on whether the monitor situation, because I guess comedians just love monitors. Well, he likes monitors. He likes to hear all of his sound effects and all that stuff. And it could change from venue to venue, a proximity of the PA and all that stuff. So he ended up settling on an M80, a KK105, and the SEV7. So he had 3 capsules, 2 of each. And show you a picture of this too. We made a custom case for it as well, just again to thank him. And they let us come to the show when they came through Tulsa. So it was pretty cool because we were sending these to all these different casinos, and I was like, "What's going on?" And that made total sense. But gosh, when if that source goes down or if that source doesn't sound good, that's the moneymaker in that situation. But it's funny I mentioned the V7 because. The V7. Do you remember when the V7 kind of splashed onto the scene?
Well, I remember when Church on the Move first used it. I think we used it on this one of our worship leaders at the time. He's now a solo artist, Jordan Weston. We put him on a V7, and obviously the price point on the V7 is really great, but to make it sound cool to him. We're like, oh, Justin Timberlake used this mic, which I think he used it like just a handful of times.
Oh, right.
It wasn't like his capsule.
Oh, were you talking about Timberlake?
Yeah.
So the story that this was something I sadly left out from being at NAMM, and trying to unpack all those years can be a little and put them in the right order can be a little challenging sometimes. But that's where I actually was introduced to SE Electronics for the first time.
Gotcha.
They were nowhere on my map. I was kind of aware about the front of house guy Andy Meyer and using but just paid no attention to it until I met I think Jonathan Pines, and they were Fingerprint Audio was the distributor of SE on the US side at the time. And he walked me down the entire line. It was really, really cool. He showed me some of the Rupert Nave stuff too, which we're now also doing a lot of.
Yes.
But they had the he had the V7 just sitting there, and I think the coolest thing about it, before I even listened to it, was the beveled edges, so the mic doesn't roll off a table.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting, that's neat. And I listened to it, and it had one of the smoother, well, it has a smoother sound than like a 58. I probably should do a review on that, like right after we get done with this.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, wow. And then he reminded me, he's like, yeah, you're going to see that on the Super Bowl this year. I was like, oh yeah, really? And I was like, that's Timberlake, right? He's like, yep. I was like, okay, that's great. Well, fast forward to a big thing, by the way, is they had capsules.
Yes.
And that's all that mattered to me. I was like, do you have anything in black? they had the gray with
the gray with the red.
Yeah, and the neck wasn't even the same color as, or it was like a brushed metal. Yeah, it just didn't even match like a ULXD stick or whatever, the handhelds.
Yeah.
So we are we're watching the Super Bowl. Of course, Patriots fan is Patriots Eagles. Sadly, my team lost. However, I was too busy for like an entire quarter because like I'm answering texts on what capsule is this? What capsule is this? It's like a V7. Well, I preemptively bought like 20 of them.
Yeah.
Because I knew as soon as people saw that, their curiosity would just go up. And, I try to kind of do that today without like, bankrupting payroll. But, I got to be got to be smarter. But they were so inexpensive.
Yeah.
I was like, I think this is going to, I could hear it solving some problems for people. Especially if you have singers with like that 4K, that natural brightness. I felt like it was a lot more smoother, and it also had a frequency response just even on paper that was better than a 58, or the range of it was better than a 58. So to me, it was worth it, and it paid off, because like we rented and selling them, and then so Fluffy and them ended up picking one of those for his. I felt like I saw that one quite often, but it was like it was either I kept seeing the 105 or the V7.
Yeah.
So that ended up being a capsule we suggested quite often.
Yeah.
One thing that I think as they got popular and doing like run after run after run, there started to be something where if the capsule, it's kind of like what I was talking about before with this. Mm-hmm. Capsules don't like to get wet. Elements don't like to get wet unless they're made to get wet or to handle some type of moisture. Mm-hmm. Well, those V7s, they don't. They definitely don't. So if you have a singer that's when they tend to be louder, they tend to also, more moisture comes flying out of their mouth, and that element gets wet, and over time, the high frequencies can stop responding the same way they used to. So we started seeing a lot of those come back, and we've had, SE took care of it as far as like they replaced them immediately. So they handled everything, no questions asked. But that's one thing. Just like, I would carry a couple of them just in case something starts acting funny on you. Because the last thing you want to do is have your artist notice. Anyway, so that was kind of neat to kind of engage some of that artist support, if you will. Artists, of course, we were directly engaging with the artist, and later on we're supporting the engineer who's also with that artist. Mm-hmm. As we progressed throughout the year. It's funny, I thought we went to Boston in 2017, but it was actually 2018. I talked about that on a previous podcast, so just kind of like timestamp that a little bit different. We did end up going to Orlando that year. I actually have you were there.
Yeah, that was the Orlando MXU. What was the church called?
Was it Reach?
It might have been. But I remember that, and then we went to WFX.
It's either Reach or Real Church, one or the other.
Yeah.
But, because I have a great picture of Fernando from SSL wearing a Yamaha. He was wearing the Yamaha cover because it was so cold in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was perfect. But WFX was another one of those events this is the second time we went to, and it's just more of it helped that MXU was being paired up with that. As far as they just happened to be there, and I think they were doing a panel discussion.
They did, yeah.
It was beneficial. It's kind of like you get more bang for your buck as far as the travel goes. But WFX is kind of like a worship facilities kind of conference or trade show, if you will. And it was just good to again be present. But as far as like whether or not we really could belong there or not in the future, that wasn't it either. But this is a good launching point to how we went into Christmas of that year. We did all the things that we thought were right as far as where we needed to be throughout the year. Experimented enough, going to new places, whether they panned out in the future, it didn't matter. It's just the fact that that we're doing them. I think we talked about something this morning, is you do the hard things until they're easy.
Yes.
Well, that's not always easy, like leaving your family. And then I came back kind of discouraged because it was like, oh shoot, that's probably not going to be, was it a waste of my time?
Yeah. It
felt like it, but it wasn't. Now, waste of your time is if I kept going back and I kept getting the same dang result, Yeah. So that's why, I think I'm coming around to, after 10 years, maybe checking it out again, see if I see something different, a different angle. Because the biggest thing is we're always trying to see if we can solve problems for people.
Yes.
Is that a bottleneck for them there? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But as we wrapped up the year, funny enough, as we were getting towards actual Christmas, Andrew said he was over at this church over on Pine that
in an old grocery store.
In an old grocery, it's I think an old warehouse market.
Something like that, yeah.
I used to shop there when I was a bachelor, man. Just save money on the multi meal.
Yeah, buddy.
The bag-o cereal. Yeah, and it's a real thing. You got to do what you got to do,
dude.
But it ended up being Transformation Church, and so that's like a name drop now, but not a lot of people knew them at the time. And we were Church on the Move was big time partnering them and supporting them, helping them.
Because this is a little bit after when Mike Todd became the pastor.
It was within the same year or two or year and a half span.
Yeah.
And he came and did a first Wednesday on Church on the Move, and I was just like, man, it was. I would go back and listen to that again because it was amazing. I just hearing somebody talking about starting out and then and figuring out what the next step is and following God and all that. But what was really cool was that I didn't know Andrew was coming alongside their production guy and kind of mentoring them. And I was like, dude, whatever you're doing, I want to be a part of it. So if you're giving something to them, how can I give? If you're trying to figure something out, how can I help?
Yeah.
And that service was fantastic. Yeah, because they were, I think that's back when they were on an M7 before the SSL came in. And it's funny, I didn't know what that was ever going to lead to. We helped them with a significant upgrade in 2019.
Oh, yeah, the SSL install was crazy because beforehand, all their sub staking to the stage were just XLRs through the ceiling that weren't labeled very well.
Oh,
so it was just a pile of, you see back here, it was like this, but out of this hole in the ceiling. And the production director there knew what was what, but it was just it was crazy going from that to backstage. Because I don't know if many people know this, but Michael Todd's actually a really good drummer.
Yeah. And
so they had 5 or 6 drum kits backstage, piled up, all this stuff. And we, got, I think they put JBL in there. They put a mini Vertec or something like that. And then the SSL in there. And then, yeah, it was wild.
And it's funny. Everybody can look at them now and be like, oh, they're big and got all this stuff. And I was like, man, everybody starts somewhere small.
Yeah.
And they were, QLXD made sense for them at the time. PSM 300 made sense for them at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they were right there from me to you.
Yes.
It's like not a big deal. They were on the north side of Tulsa, not a lot of RF interference on that, RF traffic on that side of Tulsa. It was just, Eric Bell, who was there at the time, was like a big sponge. So he's learning as much as he can from, from Andrew and stuff. And that was a great Christmas service. I just wanted to be supportive by being present.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I don't think people realize that, we get asked to hang out with people all the time, and it's just like no one wants anything from you. It's just like you're supportive just by being present, and just leaning over for a second. I was like, man, great job. That sounded incredible. Anyway, that was just again, for Andrew, just being there in case like something came up and he needed something or whatever. But I got a lot in from that service. It's funny, they did a couple of Elevation songs, and I forgot earlier that year. I discovered that Elevation was renting audience mics from us the whole time. Had no clue.
Oh my gosh.
I think they had to ask for longer cables for the Mojave MA100s.
Yeah.
I remember Garrett texting me about it, and I was like, oh yeah, now we got like some 50 footers, but then you were stuck to the normal,
whatever the
20s or 25s. But we'll talk about next time we're on this, we'll talk about in 2019 and kind of where that ended up going. But again, I just say to anybody out there, and always just be curious. Be curious, keep an open mind, and be open to discovery, and don't look at it as a waste of time. It's a waste of time. It's a bad decision if you don't do it. It's a waste of time if you keep going back and it's not fruitful. Then that's unwise. But anyway, I'll let you wrap it up, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome. Well, if you guys made it all this way, all the way to the end. Well, actually, every episode we do this, so you're not special. But you get to use Rent 15 to get 15% off any rental. Your next one, maybe you don't feel like using it right now. You want to use it, you do you, man. But you can get 15% off. Just want to thank you for watching this. Ask if you could like, subscribe, and ring that bell if that's something that you like to do. I don't ring the bell, so you do you, bro.
Hey, don't forget to check out these Soyuz mics too on Mic Rental.
Yeah, they'll be linked in the description. So we'll have all that there, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.